name is Jacob Hart, and this is my presentation on why some people can handle stress better. Stress. Many people in their work days deal with stress. Everybody, whenever they go to work, deal with stress and deadlines and people around them. Stress is a response to something a person is worried about. Something they don't know how to handle, don't know how they're going to deal with it, or how it's going to end up. Every person in the world undergoes stress nearly every day. If there's a person in the world that doesn't undergo stress, they're probably not doing much. Stress effects. People with stress are normally more snappish than others. When they're overloaded with stress, they begin to see the world in a negative outlet. They can also start to be more negative in general, seeing things that they would normally not care about and snapping at them or saying them in a negative manner. Someone that is normally happy could start to say negative things about people and subjects. Say if there was a person who you saw every day that was normally upbeat, happy all the time, suddenly got a new job or a girlfriend or something, and a lot of stress is put on them, they may start to be less happy, they will show more negative feelings or things, be a more average person, I guess. Stress effects too. Stress can cause extreme worry and anxiety, as I mentioned before. This extreme worry and anxiety could become depression or any other kind of thing that people don't want to have. Stress can also cause a person to take up drinking or drugs to escape. Many people today do this. Whenever they have too much responsibility and it causes too much stress, they take up drinking, doing drugs, or anything else they can do to numb the effect and stop all the hardship. Many different people have many different ways of dealing with stress. As I'm about to mention, there are people who deal with stress in a positive way, the average person who deals with stress by worrying or getting rid of it in some manner, and the below average person who will turn to drinking or doing drugs if the stress becomes too much. How people deal with stress. The main way people deal with stress is to avoid the problem. This is how almost everybody deals with stress. You try not to worry about it, you go do something else, you, like some people, will take up drinking or doing drugs, and you just try to avoid it like it's not there. And as I said before, some try to act like it's not there and indulge in other things like drinking, doing drugs, hanging out with their friends, going to parties, or anything like that. There are, however, people who do the opposite avoidance, which I'm about to show you in the next slide. They are the people who work more, who instead of doing drugs, do the opposite of drugs. This is the other half. The people who go the other way are most identified by mentally strong. They're the people who, whenever confronted with a heavy workload or stress, they pursue it aggressively and try to work as much as possible with all they have with them. Mentally strong-minded people tend to do more work while under stress. If a mentally strong person were to get a new job and were to have a bunch of stuff dropped on them by their supervisor or boss or whoever, they will, instead of cowering and trying to avoid it or do it one at a time, they will take it all on immediately and do as much as possible in a short amount of time. Now, these kind of people are what you might know as workaholics, or people who are referenced as married to the jobs, people who don't get much outside time and just spend all their time working all day long, since that's what, after all the stress, leads them to do. The difference between the mentally strong and not. While a lot of people may think there's a huge difference, there isn't that much of a difference that you couldn't do the same if you really push yourself to. And there isn't, just because a person is mentally strong, that doesn't mean that you can't relieve any stress that you might have in a positive manner. This difference doesn't mean there's no hope for the normal person to relieve stress or to be able to look positively outlook and everything, like I said. The only difference is how you react to stress. While the mentally strong naturally react to stress in a productive way, these kind of people won't get much out time, won't spend much time with their family, and they don't really relieve stress as much as avoid it by doing the work they have. How the mentally strong stress. Most people like this handle stress by doing more work than normal, as I said. While they get work, they may stress, and this makes them go out and do more work, find something else to do to forget about the stress by doing more work than what they originally had before. Because of this, they may do things that will overtax them if they're not careful. These are the type of people who you find are hospitalized for overworking, exhaustion, doing too much that they can't handle, and eventually breaking time if they're not careful. The best way to handle stress. The most effective ways to handle stress comes in a few methods. The first being going with friends and family. If you're under a lot of stress, if you get some time out of your day, hang out with friends and family, you will probably lose a lot of your stress and even find some ways to help you deal with whatever is causing you stress. Doing something you like, and this doesn't involve like drinking or doing drugs. It means for you to slow down, think of something that you enjoy, and go out and do it. And if that's sitting down and knitting or getting online and talking with some friends, then do it. Not worrying about it. This isn't the same as avoiding it. Not worrying about it is if there's something in the future that you can't control, like if you have a sick family member or if there's an event coming up that you don't want to have to deal with, just don't worry about it. Wait till that time comes, and whenever it gets there, that's when you deal with it. Causes of stress. Many people have things that they find easier to do than others. Every person is different in how they can deal with stress. Some have social issues, while some just have responsibility issues. These can range from a number of things, but most of them deal with the future. Most people are afraid of what the future will hold, or they have a deadline that they don't want to do, and they don't know how they're going to go about it. This will cause amazing amounts of stress and can even lead to depression. The one thing that is all about the future is work. Work is, as I said before, a major contributor to stress because all the things you have to deal with, and most importantly, the future. How you're going to pay your bills, if you're going to get a promotion, what you're going to do with your workmates, and what your boss is going to think about you in the end. Work stress. Many people have deadlines to make them work, like I said before. This work deadlines can cause a person to have no idea how to deal with them since they may not know how to do it or it may have sprung out of nowhere. These deadlines, if you're starting to fall behind, can cause stress. If a person thought they had some time to work on a deadline and it turns out that it popped up quicker than they thought and then they have a deadline after that, they may start to fall behind, and because of this, they will get more depression, more stress, and can fall even further behind, sometimes losing their jobs in the process. Self-esteem. Many people have stress about who they are. It doesn't matter who you are, whenever you look in a mirror, you can probably point something out that is flawed to you. What they look like and what they do causes a person stress. If you think you have a big nose, you talk too loud, you look weird, this can all cause stress and even depression. I'm sure everybody's familiar with everything that is going around that is about bullying, stress relief, drugs, drinking. This is all can be linked back to your self-esteem. This kind of stress can become very serious depending on how severe it is. If you're not careful, and this is usually in early adults to teens to kids, it can also affect when you're in your mid-30s, 40s, or whenever. If you're not careful, you can become very depressed, even suicidal about yourself. You can fall victim to bullying and all that if you're not careful about your self-esteem and your stress that comes with it. Overall, stress is everywhere. People just have different ways to deal with it. As I mentioned before, you can deal with stress in a multitude of ways, but every person is different. Every person deals with it in their own way. How you deal with it is up to you. What you find is a good way to relieve it, be it being with your friends or family, working out, or whatever makes you happy. While others can resort to drinking or drugs as an escape. This means that these are the people that, as I mentioned before, you have the strong-minded, you have the average person, and you have the weak person, or the weaker person, if that's offensive. They are the people who can't take the responsibility, can't take the stress, and have to escape that way. And that is all.